Hello and welcome back to another Archaeo-Scope. This series is kind of like an inverted Questions of Doom, where rather than you sending me a question to try and answer to the best of my ability, and incidentally, don't worry, there's still a fair few of those waiting to be answered, I haven't forgotten. I put a question out there for you in the form of a video to watch and consider and comment below and discuss and debate, and hopefully we all come away with an answer that one of us on our own might not have considered. Myself included. I love these videos because it's like a meta response to the question of the day, and we all hopefully learn something from each other's wisdom and experience. And well, today's Archaeo-Scope sort of question of the day is kind of inspired actually by the season. I'm in the beginning stages of decorating the office. It's starting to look a bit more Christmassy, and outside it is cold. Yes, folks, it's the winter. It's cold outside. But baby, it's cold outside. I really can't stay. So I'll stop singing. But you know what I mean, it is cold, and so last night it got down to like -7 degrees Celsius. Mrs. Super and I stayed nicely wrapped up warm in bed all night. Scarcely dared to expose even a toe to the night air, for example. But yeah, it's cold, and funnily enough, in that context, in the past couple of days, I've come across an interesting, a fascinating TV show called Life Below Zero. I caught 2 episodes on Saturday night, and this is what I wanted to talk to you about today, because I'm sort of still crystallising my thoughts here, but I'd appreciate some help in the comments below. You see, in the 2 episodes that I caught, Life Below Zero follows the lifestyles of 3 or 4 key individuals who have chosen to live in Alaska. 3 of the 4 in particular are living very isolated lifestyles. They're choosing to literally physically separate themselves by hundreds of miles, if not thousands of miles, from the nearest individual, and live a lifestyle that they consider to be purer, more authentic, more in touch with the landscape around them, and harder. A hard lifestyle. And this is really emphasised actually in the making of the programme. The editing really emphasised a sort of a lifestyle that involves lots of running and pulling and tugging and sort of aching joints and this kind of thing. It was all about getting back to basics, and basics meant difficult. Now this is exactly what I found interesting about this, is that anthropologically that doesn't really pan out. You see, we know that people who live in difficult landscapes deliberately set up life for themselves culturally, but also the physical landscape. They take time to make life easier for themselves, not harder. For example, things like energy expenditure becomes crucial. Ice fishing. This is why you always have that sort of cartoonish image of an Inuit ice fishing and just sitting very still, partly so he doesn't disturb the animals below the water, but also partly just it's energy saving. It's a tactic. It's not about working harder to get your food or your energy. It's about actually working smarter, and that's something which really wasn't coming through in this particular TV show. There was a chap who had set up a lovely little sort of house in the woods in the middle of nowhere, and he took great pride in the fact that he was eating and drinking and gathering all the food that he could need from the world around him. And one day the caribou appeared on the mountainside, and he was like, I've got to go and intercept the caribou. So there was lots of shots of him running slow-mo in the snow with a rifle over his shoulder. And that's not his fault. That's an editing choice. That's the production team. But it was a very strangely modern way of thinking about caribou. Again, anthropologically or certainly archaeologically, we know that in the Ice Age, for example, people absolutely relied upon caribou migrations, but it didn't seem to have been the case that they would just happenstance see them and then run at them. It was more a case of you follow the migration through the landscape, maybe for a couple of days, and then you come back to your base camp. It was a slower, more, I suppose, again, energy conserving style of hunting. Now, of course, there are moments in the hunt when you have to expend energy, but all hunters, predators in the wild as well, leave that moment until the last second. It's all about preparation and then getting the kill. But the emphasis here was work harder, work longer, run up that mountain, get the food, come back down. And I couldn't help but think that strangely enough, it was undermining the message that it was trying to put out. There was a lady, for example, who she was in her 50s or 60s, and she was emphasising this because the last year, apparently, she'd slipped really badly and hurt herself. And she was off on a quest to get some tree buds from a particular place in order to make a balm that would soothe her aching joints, especially with all the hard work that she's having to do to survive in life below zero. And there was lots of shots of her sort of struggling to get her snowmobile up certain things and across certain things. And again, it was a hard life, as opposed to one which was filled with tasks, or one which had a different rhythm. Now, interestingly, they put those two to one side. There was one of the people that this TV series focused on had actually married a local lady. He'd married an Inupiat woman, a sort of a local Inuit lady, and he was living in that community. And what you could see there actually was that they weren't doing that. What they had was they did have where it made sense some mod cons. They had modern structures with doors and steps. They weren't living on the ground, for example. It was raised off the ground so as to not be touching the cold earth. They were constructing a structure that they wanted to take down to the river to aid with fishing and hunting. And in order to do that, they put it on a sled, and they were making choices about how they were going to. That seemed, again, a bit more, I suppose, in line with my understanding of how people choose to live in these environments. So really, this is a two-part consideration. First of all, the question is, how hard is life below zero? And whether or not life below zero has to be as hard as it was being portrayed in the TV show, certainly in the editing. Again, this is at the mercy of a production crew, clearly, of what we're seeing. But then the second part really is, what does that say about how we view people who live alternative lifestyles today? I say alternative as in non-city dwelling, even farmers, not connected to that broader system of society. And what does it say about people who lived before us, people who lived, for example, in the Ice Age? What does it say about how we view those people and how we imagine their lives must have been? After all, studies have shown that in most hunter-gatherer societies, people have more leisure time than people who are living the 9 to 5 and who have that sort of set weekend as time off, for example, in the evenings, this kind of thing. They have more time to relax and to pursue hobbies in the hunter-gatherer societies than we do, and I count myself in that sort of rat race kind of society. It's interesting how it is sort of counterintuitive. It is tempting, I guess, to portray hunting lifestyles and lifestyles that rely on gathered resources as constant, arduous, difficult, a task that never ends. But that simply doesn't pan out with the evidence, with the studies, with the data. And yet it's always the refrain that we come back to. It's always the thing that is the central focus of, especially, for example, programs like Life Below Zero. Sometimes you get really good sort of media productions that, for example, Ray Mears highlights how actually living smart in different environments can really, again, make life easier. But they're few and far between. Why is it? Why do we feel the need to emphasise how hard that way of life is? I'm not quite sure. I can hear some of my friends sort of saying, well, it's so that not too many people unplug from the system, and so not too many people go away and stop paying their taxes and all this kind of thing. And okay, I can sort of possibly buy into that. And also as well, I'm not for a moment suggesting that there aren't difficult tasks to undertake when you're living in those sort of situations and scenarios. Of course there are. Energy intensive building projects, hunting, dragging, for example, a carcass back from a hunt, this kind of stuff. But it's not that kind of treadmill, I guess, that's portrayed in lots of modern media. So I don't know. I really this is one of those ones where I'm not leaning in any particular direction. I have no finished thoughts on this topic, and I'd love you to help me with this. So to recap, first of all, why, I wonder, do we typically feel compelled to portray these sorts of lifestyles as intrinsically hard, lifestyles that are just constantly difficult? And secondly, what does that say about how we view the past? And I suppose, what does it imply about how we view the present? Are we suggesting that life today is easier than it's ever been before? Are we suggesting that life today is somehow the thing that is, I don't know, the goal, the thing to be aimed for? People in the past have been lifted out of an arduous lifestyle and into the modern world. I don't know, the modern world. I just find this very interesting, and I thought I'd share it with you guys to talk about below. Anyway, I look forward to seeing what comes out of this discussion, and as ever, until next time, do take care. Bye bye.